It's May 28th, 2026 at 5 o'clock in the Skakit Room. I'm calling the meeting to order and wondering if there's any public comment or announcements from anybody. I do know that Regan has joined us. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Tracy is joining us. She said she's a couple minutes late and there's a good chance that Shannon's also joining us. But I know that your time is limited today, so we're going to immediately jump into the update on Eldridge Park and the renovation. Tom, do you mind just giving a little few sentences about where we're at?
So, I mean, I think we've been really hitting the grindstone. Weston and Sampson has been phenomenal. It's been mostly us, Regan, two of her colleagues, Jamie and Tracy, and then sometimes our select board liaison, Meth, has been in these meetings. So, I mean, we started out with literally just a plan and a dream, right? And now we're talking schematics, and we're actually getting into playground detail and things like that. So everything's really livening up. But we did want to give a little bit more formal of an update, and that's why we have Regan on. And I'm hoping that you're able to share your screen so that we can just go over where we're at.
I am, yep.
And one of the things that she'll talk about is when we had that April 30th meeting, I believe it was, or the April meeting with the public, we took a lot of that. I know Jamie wrote down a lot of notes, I did, Tracy, and Regan and her team actually already came prepared to our next meeting with those notes. So, Regan, take it away.
Sure. All right. Good evening, everyone. Again, Regan Andriola, Senior Project Manager and Landscape Architect with Weston Sampson. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to run through the plan. It's not as illustrative and beautiful as some of the prior renderings, but that's because we are, as Tom said, grinding this out, getting these technical drawings in. So we're just going to highlight the key pieces and the changes to the plan, specifically from that community, the last meeting, and the community input. So, and I'll zoom in here, but primarily we had made sure that we enlarged the shaded areas and the kind of rest hangout areas for the pickleball users around the court. So I'll zoom in here just. We have a covered structure here that we've enlarged a bit from what we previously showed. We also have a covered structure for shade in the playground that we're going to be finalizing the sizing and design of those items. We have also added an accessible pickleball court, which gives us this little bump out here, which is nice because it actually frames up this northwest corner of the pickleball courts to be kind of its own space. We've also included interior fencing between all of the courts. That was a specific ask for pickleball so that we don't have stray balls interrupting the various games. So we've, in blue here, you can see those interior fences as well as between the tennis court. So this will be a higher fence, probably a 6 to 8 foot fence between the tennis courts. I think 8 foot is what we're planning for. So that functionally, again, if you're doing a lesson, that you aren't interrupted by somebody on the next court over. So fencing. The other ask was for widening out this promenade down the middle to give more space for benches and again seating along this edge. So we have widened this to 10 feet now, which is a really nice, generous promenade down the middle. So that should feel really good. What else did we have here? Interior netting. We have added some fitness equipment. We're still kind of fine tuning what exactly that equipment might be and where it is. Right now we have some located up approximate to the basketball courts. I know the teenage boys are always shooting some hoops and then maybe looking to use some of the fitness equipment. Some for various, plyometrics and all the different, we're trying to do kind of more multifunctional fitness equipment. So we have that placed up here along with some hangout tables, picnic areas between the courts. We have some trees tucked into this pavement area at the top, so we do have a little bit of shade. We can also think about some integrated umbrellas into the tables as well. up here. Let's see, we have located a few pieces of fitness equipment down here as well within the playground area. Again, we're finalizing, whether makes the most sense. We figure that some parents may want to be using that while also watching their kids. So those were the key pieces for layout. One other thing that came up was a discussion that in widening this promenade, we were losing about 500 square feet of the playground area. So we have evaluated whether we had room to encroach a bit into this gravel parking lot without impacting the number of parking spaces and the functionality of the parking lot. So that is something that, because there was a greater depth than was required for parking, we have the ability to shift this over and gain back that 500 square feet that we had lost in this promenade. So we are going to be proceeding with that. So again, it's no impact to your parking or functionality there. And then we're maintaining the same amount of play space that we had originally had. Let's see, nobody cares about this that much. It's stormwater, but it's happening all underneath and around. So we have our EDR engaged to work on that. There's some, swales along the perimeter and then some subsurface infiltration underneath. We don't need to talk about the details of it, but it's happening and it's all working. Playground equipment, we have contacted 4 playground manufacturers to get some different layouts, and so now we've narrowed it down to about 2 that were.
Regan, can you make that as large as you can make it?
I will, yeah. I was gonna zoom in a little bit more on this. Let's see if I can. Let's see if that helps. Full screen or maybe presentation mode. Let's see if that works. Is that a little better?
It is.
Okay, so we've got a few playground manufacturers. We're all kind of leaning, I think, towards we like Compan, but in all of the manufacturers that we've spoken to, we have been working through having an accessible structure that, again, we play with this. If you can see these contours here, we're sloping up and utilizing the grade change already out there and playing that, working that into the playground and the play value. So we have an accessible route that somebody can come up here, enter into the play structure at the top via a ramp, and then be able to navigate throughout the play equipment through slides. And then we have some integrated slides into the slope here, other climbing equipment, an accessible carousel that's at grade here. So anyone mobility impaired or even like a parent with a stroller for a younger kid, you could go on to this. So that is kind of the theme. Let's see if we can get to the next slide here. Whoops. Okay, here is another New England Recreation Group. The other thing, similar, you can see that would be a large structure that's accessed via like a bridge from a higher elevation, and then we have a corresponding smaller structure for your 2 to 5-year-olds. And then we are thinking about incorporating, and swings, of course. As a parent, I used to say nobody wants swings, but now I have a little kid, and when you have a little kid, the only thing they can do is sit in the swings. So, so in all of these designs, we'd be making sure that we have at least 2 toddler seat swings, 2 belt swings, and 1 accessible swing. So in all the concepts, we're making sure we ensure that there's space for that. And playing with kind of a sea theme here. And so we're really interested in having some sort of climbing structure like this. That's a sea creature. We're liking the humpback whale, so we're exploring where we can incorporate that into the design. Also potentially having like a boat theme as well. And then here's one other one. Again, another type of whale climber, another structure that you can see. Again, we're elevating it, we're accessing it from the higher slope here. That's all accessible. And then integrating like the roller, this roller slide is really cool, very sensory. And then, and again, like a corresponding smaller toddler structure. So that's where we're at. We have a lot of moving pieces, but we're actively narrowing it down and fine tuning the design. So those are really the key pieces. And then I'll just open it up. Any other questions about anything here?
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Regan. So a couple of small things. We're still in the deciding phase of what's actually going into that playground. So one thing that we're also mulling over is the possibility of maybe not necessarily like a large sandbox, but a sand table of some sort, something in one of the corners of the playground area. So that's something that we're looking into. Another big thing is we told Weston and Sampson this at the 11th hour. So right here is the property line. And as you can tell, this part of the tennis court goes onto the property line of the school district. So leadership is in active conversations about an easement where if we're able to move the tennis court slightly to where it's off of the property line, the only thing that would be on there is the pathway, and so that's what we would be asking for regarding the easement. So unfortunately, Weston and Sampson is working on that now because that was given to them on Tuesday. So that's just something that's not reflected in this design, so if in a week or two we have a new iteration, I just didn't want anyone to be shocked that it looks like it's shifted over a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, and we're actively working on that, and it seems like, we can do it without any, compromise to the courts or anything, so.
What about the type track?
It's in there, it's
What's
up
in
on
there?
the,
Oh, yeah,
It's in
so,
there?
sorry, yes, so it's right, where she's circling,
Okay.
that would be the type track.
it's on the northern side, and so in the middle of the type track will be a concrete surface that kids could draw on with chalk, or other activities could be based in that middle part. And everything to the southern end, that's all gonna be the soft foam type ground version for, that you see in all the modern playgrounds. One thing that we're trying to fix with the tennis courts is the orientation right now results in a lot of sun glare for tennis players, and so the version that you see right here is a north-south, more of a north-south orientation, which addresses that issue, but if we're squeezed for space and we have to move stuff around, there's a chance that we're gonna have to change that orientation again. So the priority here is to try and stay as much as we can with the north-south orientation and potentially move some of the other pieces around, but
The integrity of the total renovation will still be the same, regardless of how we have to shift that. So,
it's like dealing with pickles, arranging pickles in a pickle jar. I mean, I'll say that 3 or 4 times a day, because this is really what we're
That's
dealing
true.
with. We only have so much space on this lot, and it's super tight, and, if you consider the 4 elements of this project, we want to make sure that each of those 4 elements are getting a substantial improvement.
Is that why we lost the handball court?
No, the handball court could be something that we could
That's
still.
gonna be a potential add-on
Yeah.
if we secure more funding.
Okay.
So it's actually, if
It would be
Reagan has her
next
cursor right over it, that's going to be one of the add-ons, that as long as we secure more funding, that'll be one of them, whether that's CPC or grant or
Got
whatever it is.
Okay.
Tom could also build a small 4-story building in that corner there.
I'm just saying.
Can look out over the baseball field.
The sandbox.
Yeah,
It's important that it be something that kids can sit in. If we make it a table, we're assuming that a child can stand and that all children can stand. It is the lowest common denominator for children in terms of development, and it's where they start. Playing with sand, the way sand moves, the way that you pile it and build with it and pour it and do all the things that we do with sand is the very beginning of physical development for a child, before they can go up any of those ramps, before they can have the postural control to go down a slide. It's important. So my asking for that is really based on science and what is needed for good, strong bones and muscle control and sensory development for a young child.
That's actually, we've been thinking about that internally too, about, the same thing. I was thinking if it was at grade or lower for smaller kids, I mean, most kids in a small sandbox are sitting around the edge, right? And then even if sand migrates, it's easier to like sweep it back in. But then, does that become, we're designing so that it's integrated and kind of a permanent feature, which we may or may not want to do. Whereas a table is something you could move, but maybe it's a combination of both, right? Maybe it can still be a surface mount, something that's low that you can sit at the edge of it, but it's not necessarily permanent built into the concrete around it. So just curious your thoughts on that.
I'm just thinking that if it's at grade, that it's easy for a child to crawl to it, if they're at that age, if they're not walking yet, without support, that, parents go with a variety of age ranges of children. And I know that the migration of sand issue really had to do with it going on the pickleball courts, and that's not gonna happen now because of the way that this is being structured, right? The sand's not gonna go from across the path onto the pickleball. You've got to all of the issues that were an issue with the sandbox are mitigated now with this design. So I don't think anybody was ever against a sandbox other than the problems it was causing for people who were playing pickleball or wanting to use the backstop. That was the issue with the sandbox before. But I do know, as an occupational therapist and working with children with developmental disabilities, that the kids who are at that developmental age of 2 still, but maybe they're 5 or 6 or 7 years old, they go to the sandbox to play. That's where they're able to play with their peers and do things, so.
What's, Regan, what's the item that's just to the right of the shade structure right now? What were you thinking for that spot?
These pieces, these were some of the let me see if I can zoom out this guy. These were just some of the fitness equipment, and again, this whole design and even the trike track configuration is still in flux until we get the final playground in, because then we'll know, if we have more room to move this line of the pour-in-place safety surfacing and give ourselves some more space. And again, if we want to move, there's plenty of room to work with, right? These little dashed lines are just the use zones, so you don't want to overlap those just so that people can circulate around it. But these we could move, or we could decide that we don't want any pieces of fitness equipment in with the playground, right? So we could move those out, and then I think generally we were thinking that the sand table or sandbox would be in this vicinity so that there isn't sand getting on your safety surfacing over here. You can have parents and caretakers under here at the tables kind of observing and making sure that sand wasn't getting wildly thrown anywhere, and it was just kind of a nicer, quieter place to tuck it in one of these corners. So open to hearing any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do think you made a really good point about the difference between a table and a sandbox, because there are a ton of kids that are not old enough to hold themselves up.
Right, and then their arms aren't free
Or
to
they-
play with the sand or, the trucks and pails and whatever else might be in the.
Another thing too is that the migration of sand has often played a role with kids who have dump trucks, and the dump trucks are taken in there and they load them up and move them out. And, maybe we need to evaluate, the amount of dump trucks that are in there, because, my kids were guilty of it, for sure. Loading up a mixture of sand and wood chips and taking it over to the pickleball court was something that they really enjoyed. Sorry, guys.
I mean, that's all a part of developing, and negotiating and learning, and it's normal to
Yeah.
try and control those factors in a young child. We have it at the school where I work, where it's right next to the safety surface, and yeah, the sand does, but we live on Cape Cod. We live on a giant
And
sandbar.
sand moves all the time.
Yes.
It's incredible.
And so, kids that may have a sensory defensive from early on, introducing them to sand in a safe way is a great opportunity. I mean, there's so many benefits to it as opposed to negatives, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just one person.
Could you put it inside the type track?
I mean, then, so we can talk about that
Yeah.
offline to be able to decide where it could go, depending on the fitness equipment and things like that. But I wouldn't put it inside because now we're building into that, and then we don't want the bikes to go through, and then we don't want the sand to get onto the track, right? So we want to be able to try to mitigate it as much as possible, leaving as little surface area as possible that could get the sand on it. But that's just my initial thought. But we can talk offline about that one. Specifically for Regan and this design, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Ask a question?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, the perimeter boundary you see there for the playground, the distance between that perimeter and the dotted line, which I assume is the property line,
The dotted line is not the property line, that's just the scope of the work that's being done.
so
Yeah, that's just a lot of work.
the space that we're seeing between the dotted line and the perimeter of the playground line, how much space is that?
So that's like a.
This to here?
Yeah, it's like a
This
concrete
weird?
promenade.
Yeah, that space.
So there's a grassy stretch in between the fencing
Yep,
that's about, what did you say that was, about 10 feet?
yeah, this is about 10 feet, yep.
And then it's about
And
the
then we
same.
have a 10-foot
promenade.
Yeah, sidewalk through here. We did this wider specifically because we were figuring if there were maintenance needs, like a maintenance truck or something needs to get in here to empty trash barrels or something we would have a section of mountable curbs so you could get a truck if needed, for maintenance or even emergency, right? Vehicles to get in here if absolutely needed. And so that's why that's a little bit wider. We have moved this bike rack over to here. Thinking that if kids come here on their bikes, they don't need to bring their bike all the way into the park, they can just park it over here, and then that frees up this space of all lawn. Again, we were talking about maybe some informal picnic tables, or even just as people are watching the Firebirds game, I know that they kind of congregate all along this fence line, so we wanted to keep that open lawn and not have any other intrusions into that space, so we have moved the bike rack over already.
Part of why I was asking that is just, it seems like placing that fitness equipment in that playground area there is detracting from the playground, and I don't think it is putting that fitness equipment where it'll be used the most.
Well, it's thought to be more kid fitness equipment versus.
Well, I think the role was multi-generational,
Oh, okay.
right? That thought of if the parents are just watching their children play, be able to do something like that. But, I mean, now with the possibility of the sandbox going there, I mean, that could be put somewhere else,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of little puzzle pieces that we're trying to work on. We want to get the big playground equipment in and set, and then work our way around. And then as we make this change over here, to scooch this over, see what we're left with for space up here. I do think it makes sense to have some fitness equipment proximate to the basketball court if we can make it fit, right? So, and I feel like here, maybe this is like, even this piece of equipment is not really right. I would do something more like the boxes, right? That as a parent, you could do box jumps, but kids could jump from one to the other, right? I'm picturing something like that doesn't look like traditional fitness equipment. And like you said, Tom, it's multi-generational, and could be used by kids too, right?
And
A balance beam or something like that.
For everybody's edification, the playground, the reason why we need to figure that out first is each piece of equipment has a specific distance that needs to be required for like a fall zone or a safety zone. So once the equipment is selected, then you're able to literally play Tetris and say, okay, we need 7 feet from here, we need 5 feet from here, and then that's why Reagan was mentioning at the top of that structure for the tight track and everything like that, that's when everything will fall into place, because we need to have those zones properly put out. So, that, like, as an example, you can see those dotted lines, that would be the safety area, the safety zone for it, so.
Yeah, so some of them you can't overlap, like specifically swings, you can see they have these larger zones and you can't overlap that, obviously. So there are some particular zones you can overlap, but others you can't. So I feel like the playground manufacturers always, they're usually very conservative, so they use a lot of space, and then we take their designs and then we like fit them a little bit better and see where we can be more efficient with our space, you know, and what might make sense for this ed. Like you can see, for example, and this one has the trike track totally different than the others. So again, I think we want to get the equipment in and then see what we're left with. And I don't mean it like it's an afterthought, but see what shape we have to work with for trike track and additional equipment and sandbox and things that don't have those use zones associated with them. So.
Any other questions?
Has the lighting been eliminated?
No, so the lighting is part of the adult, so that would be, if we could secure additional funding, we would put that in.
So electricity would be run and conduit would be run, but,
The fixtures themselves.
right, we would basically, you know, come back at that in a part two.
But we would want to have that in now,
Mhm.
because you're not gonna be able to do it after. So we would run all of that, so it would just be getting the fixtures and then figuring out which structures go up.
The technology seems to be running towards wireless, everything.
Wireless
Wireless.
communication, but, I mean, you have to get
Phones.
electricity from a source.
Yeah, I brought this up before with the solar lighting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it just seems like the way to go to me. You don't need all that conduit, and you can, it's just,
Yeah, I mean, Regan, if you want to speak to that, I know that we've had those conversations.
Yeah, we do, and you know, we have a summary, we just haven't issued it to you, but we will get that to you, Tom, as well, that you can share with the group, that has some of the constraints with solar, specifically for courts. You know, it's certainly more feasible for pedestrian level, but for a court, because of the high, you need that uniform light, for safety. So it means that you need a much stronger light, you need much taller, and brighter. So we looked at this at another project, in P-Town, and it was actually far more costly to do the solar, to get that uniform light level, and you needed a lot more fixtures to cover that versus a traditional LED, which, you know, the LEDs are more energy efficient, right, than our old school lighting. Not quite the same as solar, but still energy efficient, and you can cover the court in 4 posts instead of needing 8, right, in the same amount of cost. So there's definitely value to the solar in certain applications, but on like the sports courts, it doesn't always, it's not the best solution from like a cost perspective, right?
so, yeah, I was, I've been going a couple of different directions and maybe off topic, but wiring is going to add to the town's operating budget, because there'll be an electric bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I got an email from Brendan about the posts that are already there that had lighting on the lower tennis court.
Mm-hmm.
It was coin operated, because the town didn't want to pay an electric bill back in the day, but there were complaints, and they took all the lights down. So if there are complaints about this, have we just, you know, wasted our limited budget putting in lighting that's good, the town's gonna take down anyways? You know what I mean, what would be the
Well,
town's response?
If you're just asking me personally,
Yeah,
I think the lighting should be there and it should be free. I mean, that's basically,
yeah.
and
You're saying there were complaints because you had to pay, or complaints because the light
There were
was
complaints
bothering
of
people
probably
living nearby?
inappropriate use of the tennis court with the lights late at night.
So, I mean, I think, so, Regan, I know you don't even have to, but so what we would end up doing is if we do.
details, Tim, details.
If we would have this in place, I would be setting the lights to a certain time frame where they shut off. That hard shut off, let's just use as an example, 9 PM. At that point, before 9 PM, if it's 7, you have to go in, press the button, it turns on for 30 minutes, you're still there, you press the button again, it goes back on. So there wouldn't, I don't know what inappropriate things happen, we don't need to talk about
You
that,
think
but,
we would do inappropriate things in the dark, Matt?
but,
This was decades ago.
so we wouldn't be taking them down if we're putting them up. Would that be correct? Would that be accurate?
As far as I can only say what I would do, but the need for lighting is so critical
Yeah.
that nobody's gonna wanna go backwards.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Regan, thank you so much for coming online with us and talking about the project, and looking forward to things moving ahead and seeing the next version.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, yeah, thank you all,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
Today,
Okay, shifting gears to the Finch State Skate Park. I sent you a couple documents the other day. I'm gonna turn it over to Erica to talk a little bit about essentially what's going on, and Tom's gonna talk a little bit too, but this is really just touching base because things are just starting, but we wanted to update you and the public on the process.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I have been managing the skate park for the last 8+ years. And my little Grom, who started skating there when he was this big, is now going off to college. And I love the park, and I am certainly in no way going to abandon it or gonna drop it and run. I just felt like it was time to explore sort of what would happen in the future. The park is run by NASA Together We Can, which was founded by Jean Finch many years ago. And the history of the park is sort of, Jean and her cohorts, were absolutely instrumental, grassroots, got the park in place. And then their kids, that generation sort of grew up and moved on, and there was a time that the park sort of fell into disrepair. And then a new crop of volunteers for NASA Together We Can came aboard, including myself, and sort of revived it. And we have been actively recruiting for others to come and fill our seats, but we haven't really been able to do that. So I just brought it up to Tom, to Jamie, to basically look at how the park is run. A lot of the costs are passed through, funded by the towns of Orleans, Brewster, and Eastham. And I wanted to start a conversation of, does it make sense for the towns to sort of, take ownership of the park? Rather than leaving it to volunteers. I feel like it's a big lift for volunteers, and it's not as big a lift for the towns.
So, to that point,
Thanks.
Erica emailed myself, the Brewster Recreation Director, and the Eastham Recreation Director with a lot of the history that she just mentioned, also with the current contract, and asked just for us to start that conversation. So the first thing we did was we all emailed together. Sorry, my nephew's FaceTiming me every time he eats. Lost my train of thought. So we all talked offline, and we said we need to bring this to our town management because this is something that's not just our agreement. So by the time I already brought it to Kim, Brewster brought it to their person, they already started communicating, so they're in a conversation on how this is going to transpire. I know that technically it's on the regional school district land and the lease is up soon, so there's a lot of conversations that need to be had on either acquiring the land, continuing that lease, and then how would that look if the 3 towns are running it as opposed to maybe 1 town, but having the other 2 towns still fund it the same way that it's going? Because right now, I believe, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, I know Orleans gives a little bit larger of a portion, is that correct, of the funding?
I have to look, I think it's, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's
a
not,
portion.
it's not a substantial
Yeah,
amount
it's
more,
not,
but.
and you have to know that all the funding together is not a substantial amount.
No.
It's $8,900 a year between the three towns.
And essentially, what Erica was explaining was that, a lot of that just goes to insurance. And
Yeah.
then, how does that happen? And then the question is, and this is why they're having this conversation, and this is above us, is it better for, one town to hold the insurance? Because right now, the way it worked was, all three towns can't have the same insurance and then do that, right? Because it was through NOSA Together We Can. So they're navigating through that and they're having those conversations. So the hope is, we'll have some updates over the next few months to be able to see where that lies. It could very well fall under the Orleans Recreation Department, and the other towns are still continuing to fund it. So, but very early on, but I mean, it's been positive and everyone seems receptive. So it's just a matter of seeing where it goes.
Yeah, and like all town facilities, it periodically needs a lot more attention and maintenance, and, it's just one of those things. And, we were noticing when we were at the baseball field the other day, because I've spent a lot of time there this spring, multiple baseball games, is that the amount of use, once it gets just a little bit warmer, is just phenomenal.
Well, it's used all year round, and you can see from some of the letters that I put in the back, there is a core group that it is their community. I mean, it is their space. They will shovel it in the winter. The lights are great because in the winter months, they can still
Be there in the
come
evening.
in the evening. A lot of these people work
They're
in the
not coin
trades.
operated though, right?
They are not coin
No.
operated, but they are LED, and the electricity runs between $20 and $25 a month.
Wow,
Um,
just for that, that's amazing.
Yeah, so, again, I'm not gonna drop this park and run away. I'm happy to do, grant writing if the funding needs, come up periodically. But I thought it was time to start the conversation, and I did think that the amount of money that's passing from the towns to go to insurance just didn't really make any sense when it could be put under a town's
Right.
insurance. I mean,
It
the
should be.
really the bulk of that money that you're giving just goes out the door to an insurance
No.
company.
Well, you've done a wonderful job
Thank
over the
you.
years.
Thank you.
All the progress, all the CPC applications. Beth?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of throw in there that in that history, the funding to build it came from local CPCs, of which I think Orleans took a bigger piece of than the
They
neighboring
did.
towns.
We got some private grants as well. We got a grant from the Kelly Foundation, but Orleans CPC did do, did do a
And there
lot
was
of it.
two rounds, there was the original construction, and then there was a refurbishment done
Correct, and
5 or
then.
6 years ago, maybe 10 years.
Well, I think, so the original park was a lot Orleans CPC. This is 20 years ago. And then about 7 years ago, there was a big grant to redo it. There was another grant to build the ramp when we expanded it. And then there was a third grant 2 years ago, and that actually did go out. That was shared between Orleans CPC, Eastham CPC, and Brewster CPC. Yeah,
But the reason I bring that up is the CPC is limited to capital projects.
right,
So repairs don't fall into capital projects.
right, yeah. I think with the exception of extraordinary maintenance, so the way, so you could use a CPC grant, for example, to resurface a tennis court. Because it's extraordinary maintenance. So when the ramps needed resurfacing, it was done through the CPC under the guise of extraordinary maintenance. You can't do the annual maintenance, you can't use it for just general repairs, but if it's considered extraordinary, you can.
So you used it for removing the shed.
Yeah, the shed was a safety issue, so that was the safety upgrades. But when the ramps need them, because it's made out of skate light, which is, it's durable, but it doesn't, it's still basically a composite surface. It doesn't last as long as concrete does. So when it came time to resurface those ramps, it was done under extraordinary maintenance via a CPC grant.
Okay, fingers crossed moving ahead with this, that there's a good change of oversight. Okay, moving on to Tom's recreation monthly report.
Yeah, I just want to state one thing. Weston and Sampson is so on top of things. I already received an email from her based on some of your notes that you guys said. So, I mean, that's how on top of things they are. So, very good things. Anyway, so this past month, a lot of registrations happened other than just our summer camps. We opened up for all of our other summer programming, and as you can see, we had 657 registrations, which totaled $29,000. Bulk of that, you see, 105 people in June, 106 people in July, and 106 people in August for pickleball. That's why we need more courts there. Other than that, everything seems pretty status quo with all of our summer programs. You can obviously see to the right of that what the numbers were in '25. One thing that we did a little differently is we feel like we were a little stretched too thin with how many children we had in our OES program in the summertime with how many staff members we had. So we cut it by just about 10 children, and now, so we're completely full with that, but we're taking it on a case-by-case basis. But we also added an additional staff member to it, so we feel like it'll be a little bit more under control. Not that it wasn't, but just we have a better oversight of the children. So I feel much better about it, having that extra person. All our spring programs are underway. We already talked about the Eldridge Park renovation. A couple of miscellaneous things, and I want to talk about the summer programs, is we've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes that I haven't necessarily brought to this board because it's technically like a special event or a community event, but we got approval from the select board to waive the yard sale fee, and we're having a townwide yard sale on June 27th and 28th. So people register through us, and we put their business. They put either their business or their residency on our little interactive map. You'll be able to scan a QR code and be able to see, where you can go. You can map out the day, and so that would be on June 27th and 28th. We already have 11 residents registered and 6 businesses. So we're trying to get the word out. This is the first year we're doing it, but I really have high hopes for this in the next few years because I started that in Woodland Park where I was previously, and I mean we had probably close to 75 to 80 residents, and so it was a huge day event, and now we're doing it on 2 days. So it'll be really exciting. We got really cheap yard signs, so anybody that registers, the first 50 will be able to put out a yard sign onto their lawn. So just fun, something fun going on. Another thing is we wanted to try to do something at the beach, and I know it's not volleyball at night, but with the constraints that we have with the time frames, we can only do something before or after the charging time frame of the beach. So before the beach opens up, every Tuesday morning, we have someone coming in to run Pilates. And she is a recently new instructor, and she wants to offer this program for free for all residents. I don't know how we're going to tell with the residents, so it doesn't matter. We're hoping we get 50 to 100 people every single day. So it's every Tuesday morning from 6:30 to 7:30 or 6 to 7:30. And part of that with Jamie's outreach, and she's done a phenomenal job. We have Mazio Construction, who also offers a portable sauna, and so they're going to bring that every Tuesday also. So people will be able to do the sauna either before or after, and then that way we're out of there by 8 o'clock, and the beach can run as it always does. So we have a lot of things coming down the pike. We're working with the Cultural Council on the possibility of funding for an outdoor movie night on the town green coming in September, so there'll be more about that. But regarding the summer programs, I just mentioned all of our positions have been filled. When I say we're collecting all the paperwork, I feel like I've been saying that for the last 30 days. But these are 16 to 25-year-olds, so believe me, it's going to take me up until the first day of camp to be able to get everything going. I mentioned summer registration is full. We're able to squeeze a few more in if necessary, but it's on a case-by-case basis at this point. At this point, it would only be residents anyway, but right now we are full. We have 4 or 5 field trips scheduled, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to wait until we finished registration with summer so that everybody had the same chance to be able to register for these because they do fill up quickly. So registration is opening up this Monday for it. We're sending out an email on Saturday letting everybody know. and we gave them a unique link. So anybody that's actually registered to our program, one of those OES or Just Try It programs, they click that link and that goes to the registration page, and they're the only ones that can access it. So that way it kind of is like a safeguard. We don't have some random person trying to register for a trip. But we're doing ice skating, we're doing Wicked Waves twice because that was so highly received last year. We're doing Ryan's Family Air Park and Arcade, and then also this year we worked with a company in Sandwich and we're doing Ride-Away Adventures where they'll be able to kayak and paddleboard. So that's all fun. Now the not so great news is because of the schools having to close for the winter time, they had to extend their school year. And I think I mentioned this. We were operating under the information that they would end school on the 26th. They still are, but now we were hoping we could start on Monday the 29th. A new wrinkle has been brought to light that the teachers will have a teacher in service day that day. So we're working through that. I'm talking to town leadership to figure out a way that we can still utilize the building, because if we don't, I mentioned this, what we would have to do is we can't start one program without the other, especially because there's so many siblings in the programs. So we would have to delay it by a day. So we'd have to start on Tuesday the 30th. And if we do that, I have to go in and we have to refund each participant for 1 day's worth. And I'm not worried about the money. I'm worried about parents making plans because, you know, I asked the school for about 2 months now, and I started an email chain for the last 30 days, and I just got that answer yesterday. So, little disappointing, but I still have high hopes that we'll be able to start on June 29th. But if not, you might hear at our next meeting that we had to push back the date by a day. So.
What does the school have to do to accommodate you?
Just let us use the gym, get in there. So originally, the whole thing was, nobody told me that that was an issue. All that I
Is this
thought,
only the middle school or is
no, this is only so,
Elementary.
it's only?
and I'll be completely transparent. This whole time, nobody said we couldn't use the 29th as our start date. So all I kept asking was, the week before, because they're only, they're full days, but kids aren't doing as much work at the end of the year. Can we get in one of those last days so that we can start prepping and put our stuff in the gymnasium? And that's the answer that I was hoping to receive. Instead, it was, by the way, you can't get in until Saturday and you can't start on Monday. That's from OES. And I already talked to Mark about this, and we're going to have more conversations with Kim next week to figure out what we can do, because we need to get in there. And we need to start putting things together, and we need to be able to be prepared. We always used to have an orientation on site with these children, with the staff, and I don't know how we're going to do that this year. But I got so concerned yesterday from what I heard from OES that I called the middle school and I asked, are we still able to start on the 29th? Yeah, no problem. So, I don't know.
Okay. Well, continue the conversations and fingers crossed we can.
Fingers crossed, and you know what? I hope I don't have to wait until our next meeting to give you better news, right? And it's, hey, we're able to do this, so.
Can we touch base on a couple of things?
Sure.
Let's back up a little bit. You said you're almost at the point where you'll be able to submit the state grant. Do you mind giving just a little?
Yeah, I'm not almost at the point, I am, and I submitted it yesterday.
Okay.
So, it was the park grant. This was a little bit lesser of a value, but it has a max value of $425,000. Again, all these things are subject to how many applicants, how much money's available, and what they deem that they want to award to. Unfortunately, with the library, it was one of those things that we were in too much of an affluent area, I believe, was the reason why they were rejected. So there's many reasons, but I would have had this, I think I spoke with Jamie the other day, I would have had this submitted earlier, but they needed a list of who our park commissioners are and who our select board members are. And I didn't want to submit something a week and a half ago when we have a new select board member, a new select board chair, and things like that. So I had to wait until everything went through. So I was actually able to submit yesterday. So they're going to start the conversation soon regarding if there's any information that they're missing from us, the applicants, and it could be awarded potentially in the middle of July.
Okay.
And that would be considered money towards the adult process.
Great. Every penny counts.
Every penny counts.
And then the idea of creating a Friends of Orleans rec.
So we've been in conversations for quite some time now, trying to figure out the best course of action. And I know I've had conversations offline with Jamie and with Meth regarding this, but this is good to be able to bring to light with everybody, is there's two different avenues that you can go down. One of them is if you wanted to just create a nonprofit right now, you just need 4 or 5 members that are willing to file the paperwork to become a 501c3, be able to have a chair, a treasurer, and everybody works independently from the town and the recreation department. It's just, when we say works independently, like they would put on these events, they would do things, but they're dealing with all the accounting, and then when they see fit, they then donate to the town through the rec department. That's one way. That's also the easiest way because it can happen tomorrow. You can start that paperwork. The other avenue that we're looking to explore, that I've been talking with our special projects manager, Mike Solitro, Kim, Meth has been involved, Jamie has been involved, and we've gotten town council involved, is there's the potential of another way to structure a nonprofit that actually flows through the town. And in that way, some of the auspices and the day-to-day operation could fall under staff rather than volunteers. The volunteers would still have a lot to do, but it would be a little bit more organized that way. I don't know what is taking so long. I know that I talked with Mike yesterday, and he said that they're just waiting to hear back because they're reviewing how other towns have done that in the past, and they want to make sure that we're doing it the proper way and the legal way. So unfortunately, I wish I could have said we already had one.
Is this the, another thing different from the Cape Cod Foundation?
Yeah, so it is another thing. In talking with Mike about the Cape Cod Foundation, it would still be an independent organization like a nonprofit that filters through with the Cape Cod Foundation. So he said at that point, if you were going to do that, you were better off just doing it as your own separate nonprofit. Yeah.
Because he, I think, is setting Orleans up with Cape Cod Foundation to be a place where donations can be made to the town in general. And it will at least accommodate this gift that we're trying to receive.
That one, yes, but I think for like the specific fact of us in the future, he was saying for the future, it wouldn't line up the best way for having ongoing fundraisers and a page there you can just donate to.
But in the interim, once he creates that account with Cape Cod Foundation and we get the money in from the gift, that would serve as a place where other people who would like to make donations
Potentially, yes,
could
yeah,
do it
yeah.
as a sort of a stopgap.
Yeah, and I don't know, has it been announced to this board about the donation?
I think so.
Has it?
No.
Okay,
No,
well,
I didn't know if it was public information yet.
It's,
You're being recorded.
yeah, no, I think the gift is, the donation has been made, the offer has been made, and the donor would write a check today if there was a 501c3 to receive it.
Okay.
but there is money sitting there from somebody, a wonderful anonymous donor that Meth has had contact with, to provide a donation to the rec department for $150,000. So, it's a pretty big deal.
And it just proves the point that once we have the works up and we have a sign up at Eldridge Park, maybe a couple signs in a couple places, we could start churning the machine so that, people who are using the facilities say, well, I'd like to give a certain amount, and we can bring that all ahead. Very important,
Yeah.
especially when we're dealing with a deficit situation.
But just in general, I always feel that until the money is in hand, talking about it isn't the greatest thing to be doing either.
No.
I agree. Okay, thanks so much. Any other questions for Tom about his monthly report?
Or any other questions
Yeah.
at all?
The yard sale, is that all happening in one central place, or is
No,
it
so
all
it's-
over?
so
where
it's
the
gonna be at-
businesses or people?
Yes, so it's going to be at the individual addresses and
Okay.
businesses. And what we're going to do is, we'll have a printed out version where people can pick up and see it, all the addresses. But then also this map, like it'll literally, you can zoom out, and then my thought was, it's interactive, so you can scan through and you can be like, all right, well, there's 5 different houses over here, there's 3 businesses here, so maybe in the morning we can go there. And so you can write it down and kind of figure that out.
Just out of curiosity, do the police have things they would like to sell? Because they used to always have sort of abandoned equipment kind of stuff. They had
I think that has to-
bicycles and kayaks and all that.
I think that has to
sort of
go through, what is it?
It was an
Was
auction.
it an auction, like a gov bid type of thing?
Formalized disposal.
Yeah. But if they wanna leave it out and someone happens to take it, but,
My
I'm sure
kids
they'd
were-
love to get rid of it.
I'm
Well,
sure.
my kids were biking the other day and they came upon a box by the side of the road and it said free phones. And there were 4 kids and they each had a free phone and then they got home and they realized that they were like $30 phones with really big screens for older individuals who just wanted a very, very basic phone. And you should have heard my eldest, it was so hilarious. What kind of a piece of junk is this? It's not an iPhone? You know, it's
It was free.
it was free, and they were so happy.
It was so fun.
That's the bottom line.
By the side of the road,
Yeah, right in front of somebody's house.
just fell off the truck.
No, somebody had it in a box with a little sign that said free. Just trying to get rid of it.
With chargers?
The police
No
department,
charges.
the police did used to have an auction, they'd contact all the other town departments, and everybody would bring their stuff there, the boats from the harbor master, and file cabinets from the town hall, and there was
Wow.
desks. all
Well, we
kinds.
have a lot of things in my building that, if they wanna do it again, we can auction a lot.
Wheel it all out to the
It'll save a
yard.
lot of space for me.
Put your location on the yard, so
Right, I
June
should.
27th.
Make some extra money.
Alrighty, so moving on, we've got to approve our April 17th meeting minutes. Becky, thank you so much for drafting up the public hearing. I know it was a lot. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Or questions or comments?
Good job on those minutes. I'd make a motion that they be accepted.
Okay, in a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty. Anybody else have anything else before we adjourn for the night? All righty. Thank you so much for participating tonight, and everybody get outside and run around.